Hello, dear listeners, and welcome back to English Listening Pod. In this video, I will talk about Cleopatra, the last queen of Egypt. She was a Greek by family and Egyptian by choice. She spoke many languages and ruled a rich and busy kingdom on the edge of the great Roman world. She met famous leaders, tried to protect her country, and faced hard choices that would change history. This story is told in simple and clear words, from her first days in Alexandria to the last hours that ended an old age of kings and began a new age of emperors. Cleopatra was born in the year 69 BC in the city of Alexandria. Alexandria was a bright city by the sea, where ships came from many lands with grain, cloth, spices, and books. The city had a large library and people from many cultures. Cleopatra's family belonged to the Ptolemaic dynasty. Her ancestors were Greek, who had come with Alexander the Great long before and then stayed to rule Egypt. In court, people often spoke Greek and followed Greek customs. Still, the land they ruled was Egypt, with its own long history and traditions. As a child, Cleopatra learned many things. She studied literature, politics, and languages. She learned Greek first because her family spoke it. She also learned Egyptian, the language that many rulers of her family had not bothered to learn. This decision later enabled her to speak with priests, traders, and ordinary people. It helped her show that she was not only a foreign queen, but also a ruler who cared for Egyptian traditions. Her father was King Ptolemy XII. When he died, Cleopatra and her younger brother, Ptolemy XIII, became co-rulers. They married because royal brothers and sisters often married to keep the family line. Cleopatra was about 18 years old, and her brother was only a boy. At first, they ruled together, but the palace soon filled with anger and plans. Some advisors turned against Cleopatra. Her brother was young and easy to influence. The court split into two groups, and the fights grew tense and dangerous. Soon, traders and guards forced Cleopatra to leave the palace. She went to the eastern part of the kingdom, where she could find an army and supporters. While she gathered forces, events in Rome reached Egypt. Rome was a powerful republic across the sea, and Roman leaders were fighting each other for power. One of these Roman leaders, Pompey, came to Egypt after losing a battle in Rome. Ptolemy XIII's advisors killed Pompey, hoping to win favor with Rome. But another Roman leader, Julius Caesar, came after Pompey. Caesar pursued his rival and arrived in Alexandria. Cleopatra saw her chance. She needed a strong friend and protector. Ancient stories tell that she had herself hidden in a rug or a carpet and brought secretly to Caesar's room. Whether the carpet story is exactly true or a lively detail, the meeting mattered. Cleopatra used strategy and charm to speak with Caesar. She told him about her trouble and asked for his help. Caesar was a strong man of war and law. He listened and chose to help Cleopatra because he wanted order in Egypt and a new ally in the east. Caesar supported Cleopatra in her fight against her brother. With Roman help, Cleopatra returned to Alexandria, and the city's fighting changed. Many parts of the struggle were violent and sad. Her brother Ptolemy XIII died in battle, and the royal court changed. After this conflict, Caesar placed Cleopatra back on the throne. He also set her younger brother, Ptolemy XIV, as a nominal co-ruler. But it was clear that Cleopatra held the real power. During the time Caesar stayed in Egypt, Cleopatra and Caesar became close. They spent time together in Alexandria and in Caesar's villas. Cleopatra gave birth to a son. People called him Ptolemy the 15th, but most knew him as Caesarion, meaning Little Caesar. Many believe Caesarion was the child of Julius Caesar. That idea worried some Roman leaders because a child with ties to both Caesar and Egypt could be a symbol of two powers joined. Soon, Caesar returned to Rome. Cleopatra went with him for a while and lived in Rome in Caesar's home. The Romans were curious about a queen from Egypt. She wore rich clothes and brought different customs with her. But life in Rome changed quickly. In March of 44 BC, Julius Caesar was murdered by men who feared his growing power. News of his death shocked the world. Cleopatra heard the news and quickly returned to Egypt with her son. After Caesar's death, Roman politics fell into new fights. Cleopatra had to watch closely. She had a son to protect and a kingdom to govern alone. Cleopatra set about ruling Egypt with calm skill. She showed herself in public rituals and met with priests. She took care of grain stores because Egypt's wheat fed many people, and grain was a real source of power. If the stores ran low, people grew angry. Cleopatra knew this and worked to keep supplies and trade flowing. She also used festivals and temples to show that she was a living form of the goddess Isis. She wore symbols and joined the rituals that mattered to the Egyptian people. This helped her win support inside the country. Across the sea, Rome changed. Power moved between men like Octavian, Mark Antony, and others. In 43 BC, the Second Triumvirate was formed in Rome. This group included Mark Antony, Octavian, and Lepidus. For a time, they shared power and divided the Roman world between them. Antony took charge of the East, the lands closer to Egypt. He needed money and ships for his own wars. Egypt had wealth and grain, so Antony's path soon crossed with Cleopatra's. In 41 BC, Mark Antony called Cleopatra to give him support, and she answered. Cleopatra sailed to Tarsus, a city in modern Turkey. There, she made an entrance designed to impress Antony. She arrived on a beautiful ship, dressed as a goddess in bright colors, with music and perfume around her. Antony was very taken by her. They talked, they planned, and they soon became lovers. Their friendship became political as well. Antony needed money and soldiers, and Cleopatra needed a Roman leader who would stand with her. Antony stayed in Alexandria for long periods. He and Cleopatra formed a close household. They held feasts and received guests from many places. The two were partners in politics as well as life. Cleopatra bore Antony children, first twins, Alexander Helios and Cleopatra Selene, and later another son, Ptolemy Philadelphus. The names of the children reflected royal ideas and the hope of a lasting dynasty. Antony and Cleopatra did more than share a home. They tried to make a new order in the East. They gave lands to Cleopatra's children and made political promises that worried many Romans. This event, called the Donations of Alexandria, looked to some like the creation of a new royal line in the East, one that might challenge Rome. Back in Rome, Octavian watched with rising fear. He used the events to argue that Antony had become weak and influenced by a foreign queen. Octavian made speeches and sent letters to the Roman people to persuade them that Antony had betrayed Roman values. The fight between Octavian and Antony grew personal. It also became a fight between two visions of the Roman future. For Antony, powerful friends in the East made sense for his plans. For Octavian, control of Rome and respect for Roman traditions mattered above all. In 31 BC, the two sides met in a great naval battle near Actium, on the western coast of Greece. The fleets fought hard. Ships clashed, sails tore, and the sea filled with smoke and noise. Antony and Cleopatra fought together, but the battle turned in Octavian's favor. Cleopatra chose to flee with a part of the fleet, and Antony followed her. The defeat at Actium was the start of the end for their power. After Actium, Octavian moved quickly along the coast and into the eastern lands. Cities and rulers shifted sides. Antony and Cleopatra returned to Egypt to try to gather forces and resist. They hoped to rebuild and to fight again, but Octavian's army advanced on Alexandria. The people began to fear and to lose hope. When Octavian entered Egypt in 30 BC, the final moments came fast and tragic. Antony heard a false report that Cleopatra had killed herself. He could not bear the news and fell into despair. He wounded himself with his own sword and later died in Cleopatra's arms. Cleopatra now faced Octavian alone. She feared being taken to Rome and shown as a trophy in a Roman triumph. She did not want to be a public display of defeat. Instead, she chose another path. Ancient writers tell the famous story of Cleopatra's death. She had two faithful servants, and they assisted her in her final hours. The popular account says she allowed an asp, an Egyptian cobra, to bite her. The asp was a symbol of Egyptian royalty. The bite brought fast and painful death. Cleopatra died on August 12, 30 BC. She was about 39 years old. The exact details, whether it was an asp or another means of poison, remain debated by scholars. Still, the image of the queen choosing her end is powerful and has lived in stories for 2,000 years. With Cleopatra's death, the royal house of the Ptolemies ended. Her son, Caesarion, tried briefly to claim the throne, but Octavian had him captured and killed. Egypt lost its independent kings and queens. Octavian made Egypt a province of the Roman Empire. He sent grain and riches back to Rome and took control of the lands and the treasures of the pharaohs. For the people of Egypt, daily life continued, but their rulers now answered to a Roman emperor. What happened to Cleopatra's children by Antony varied. Her daughter, Cleopatra Selene, was taken to Rome and later married to a king in North Africa. She became a queen and lived under Roman protection. Her sons' fates were different. Some disappeared from the record, and others lived under Roman rule in lesser positions. The old royal world was gone, but traces of the family remained in other places and in other stories. Cleopatra's life left many marks. People in Alexandria made statues of her and minted coins with her face. Writers in Rome and later centuries told many versions of her story. Some writers painted her as a dangerous temptress. Others described her as a clever and proud leader. Over time, artists, poets, and playwrights reshaped her image to fit their own tastes. One famous play by Shakespeare showed a queen of great feeling and a tragic end. Modern films have shown her in bright costumes and dramatic scenes. Each storyteller adds a new layer to her memory. Even though the tales sometimes change, the facts of her life remain clear in many parts. She was a royal child who learned many languages and became queen at a young age. She fought for her throne and found powerful allies. She had relationships that mixed love and politics. She looked to Rome for support, and she used her wealth and skill to try to protect Egypt. In the end, she lost to a stronger political machine and to a man who would become Rome's first emperor. Her life was full of both public acts and private moments. In public, she dressed as a queen and attended grand ceremonies. In private, she could be a mother sitting with her children, teaching them to speak and to read. She had real worries: how to feed her people during poor harvests, how to keep soldiers loyal, and how to manage money for defense and trade. These simple tasks were part of the daily work of being a ruler. Cleopatra did those tasks while also taking part in the high drama of international politics. Cleopatra's story also shows how strong a woman could be in a world that often favored men. She was not simply the companion of powerful men. She planned, she negotiated, and she made choices. She used her learning and her language skills like tools. She understood the markets, the priests, and the boats that brought grain from far fields. She understood how to make friends and how to make bargains. These skills helped her hold power for nearly 20 years in a time when kings and queens often fell quickly. Even though her life ended in defeat, her name did not disappear. Stories about her traveled across lands and centuries. Sculptors carved her likeness, and poets wrote about her. Artists painted scenes of her great entrance in Tarsus, her meetings with Caesar, and her final moments in Alexandria. People remembered her as someone who lived boldly in a dangerous time. If we look at the map of those years, we see why Egypt mattered. It sat at the center of trade and food for much of the Mediterranean. Rome needed Egyptian grain. Alexandria was a city of learning and a meeting place for sailors, traders, and scholars. Cleopatra ruled from this busy and wealthy center. She tried to keep her kingdom safe by making friendships with leaders like Caesar and Antony. Those friendships were risky, but made sense in the politics of her day. After her death, Rome changed quickly. Octavian became the first emperor, Augustus, and the Roman world moved into a new era. Egypt became a treasure house for the empire. The old ways of the pharaohs met the new Roman order, and life changed slowly for people in towns and farms. Yet in books and on coins, Cleopatra's face and name remained an echo of an earlier time. Thank you for listening to the story of Cleopatra. If you like this story, please like the video, subscribe for more history stories. Tell us in the comments which part of her life you found most surprising. See you next time.